Broadcasting live from the command center located in Jacksonville, Florida, this is Military Witnesses to UAP. I am your host, Shannon Scott. And backed by popular demand, located deep in the Missouri woods, my right-hand man, Rob Heatherly. We both have assumed the duties and responsibilities of continuing the conversation. So, buckle up, hold my beer, hang on, and let's get started with today's briefings. How's it going, Rob?
Going well. Trying to get the squirrels running fast enough to get my CPU going adequately. So I went on a hunger strike, so it took me a little bit of a time to get them encouraged to get running again, or I get shot. So these little eccentricities to technology. Got it worked out.
Good. Good. How you feeling today?
Pretty good. Just got up, had some itinerary of things I wanted to accomplish, and set aside some time for that conversation, and it kind of got me. Went longer than expected, but it was those conversations I enjoy, so it was worth the time. And I can, the procrastinator's creed: why do today what you can't put off till tomorrow? So I bumped out today's schedule for tomorrow, and it's all good in the hood. Yeah.
Well, we had some breaking news, but we'll hold off on that for a second, that you just sent me. And I guess we can go ahead and start with what's going on here. Let's see.
I'm getting that chat broke out now so I can see who's on deck.
Wow, we got 14 people in there.
Bear with me, people. I'm getting there. So I can see what
all right, so what's going on, folks? About a day and a half ago, Ross Cohart, he's an Australian journalist from 7 News, and there's a segment I guess they do every once in a while, kind of like Dateline here in America, but it's called Spotlight. And let me fix this.
Yeah, I think they can. You're crunching a bunch.
Yeah. So I asked, well, Rob asked me, to keep my eye out on it. And I said, it's already been broadcasted. I just can't find a link. And being the researcher Rob is, he was able to find it like lickety split. So I got the link. I watched it. And I broke it down to just the good stuff, meat and potatoes. There's a lot of filler in there. Shows do that. Like if you ever watch like a murder mystery, after watching it for a while, they go to commercial and they'll recap the whole thing again. Like, oh, come on, get on with it. So we'll go ahead and go to this first part. Let's see what he says.
So how significant is it that the US government has actually admitted that whatever they are, unidentified aerial phenomena, are real?
I think it tells us that, first of all, the government has been lying to us for the last 60 or 70 years. And it is a sea change on the part of the government to come out and say that this phenomenon is real. I think it gives solace to people who have been told that they were crazy to have been believing or seeing this.
Well, yeah, we know that. No, you didn't say anything. You're just crazy.
Yeah, my times have changed.
Yeah. I'm becoming a real big fan of Dr. Garry Nolan. Big fan.
Yeah, I think that was a welcome change to the team of finding somebody that was a good public relations person to get out front and be able to speak on authority. It was well spoken. I think he was the right man for the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Yeah, they have this thing in the world called like fantasy football. I have like fantasy all-star charity lineup. Lou's got one for us, but I don't know who's on the team. So for my fantasy charity lineup all-star, I'm going to nominate. I'm going to pick. I'll draft Dr. Garry Nolan to be on our team. All right, we'll go on to the second one, folks. It would be.
Is it a dangerous thing for you to admit that you think these things about the phenomenon?
I think it's dangerously necessary. I think that this is the kind of thing that if we continue to ignore it, if we continue to ignore the potential danger of what it might represent, we are putting ourselves at risk, both to what it might do to us sometime in the future, but then ignoring the physics of what these things are capable of doing.
Well said, Dr. Garry Nolan. Anything
Is
to
there-
add?
Is there something brushing against your mic? Keep crunching.
I'm crunching.
Well, there's like a breeze that's coming across your mic.
Yeah, my fan is. I'll go ahead and point that somewhere else. Stand by. I have to use my. It's fancy, so I have to use my my phone with it. There it is. Tell you what, while I'm doing this, let's go on to the next.
Is it, when you say the government's been involved in a cover-up, do you think they've been concealing?
Oh, yes.
It's an amazing allegation.
I know it for a fact. I mean, I just know that.
Why do you know that?
Because I've spoken to the people who are about to come out and whistleblow on it.
What did he just say? Oh man, I got to get this lined up better. Hold on. Oh man. Here we go. Timing is everything, and I'm not doing well on timing today. Okay, I got the right app now. I just turned it down, so hopefully I sound better.
You're good.
Good. All right, so what did you just say? I think that's worth listening to one more time. That is,
play it again, Sam.
When you say the government's been involved in a cover-up, do you think they've been concealing?
Oh, yes.
It's an amazing allegation.
I know it for a fact. I mean, I just know that.
Why do you know that?
Because I've spoken to the people who are about to come out and whistleblow on it.
It sounds like there's a plane in motion, Rob. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, this is something that many of us have talked about for a little while now, since the first hearings, when Lou and then several others brought up the topic of immunity. Actually started, the thought of it last year sometime, and everybody was complaining about Lou's NDA and getting sick of hearing him say that, to where, if I could just, if I could speak more freely, I would, but I can't. And that's the consensus with a lot of people in these programs that Christopher Mellon wrote the article on, that overclassification is hurting our national security and frankly, not serving their duty to the American people that they work for, and keeping things informed of what our taxpayer dollars are being spent on, and what's going on in the environment around us. We have a right to know things that aren't a matter of national security. It shouldn't be left to them to decide what we can handle and what we can't. There's a very broad spectrum in between what they're telling us and what they think we can't handle. I dare say there's a hell of a lot of information they could be telling us that wouldn't reach that threshold of inciting panic. That they could at least give it a try. And I think that's what they're kind of doing now with the soft rollout. They're utilizing opportunities like with Garry to allow them to speak on this and share certain things, kind of testing the waters. I think that they are starting to turn around, and the public awareness, and to the large thanks to the UFO community for raising the awareness on this and putting the pressure on to kick up the dust enough to where the government and Congress especially wants to get this out and investigated. So when immunity comes around, I'm certain there's a lot of things they can't share in public, and that's understandable. But I do think they also understand that if they just testify behind closed doors and they come out and say, well, yeah, I spilled my guts in a classified hearing, but we've all decided we can't share anything with you guys on it, but thank you for the support, that ain't going to fly. They're going to have to throw us something, something tangible, credible to sink our teeth into, to basically to help start building trust back in the government, to show that we have confidence in them. And those that don't want to play ball with that, the polls will speak for themselves. They may not get reelected. So, they have it in their political interest to do the right thing as well. And they know that. If they're not interested in the topic, they're at least interested in keeping their seats. So that's, a big part of why we need to engage them and let them know that it's important to the community. Is to remind them that, this is important. And we are paying attention to who's on board with helping and who isn't. So that's important.
Very good. The one of the things I know I've said I would like to do one day, because we haven't done it, is an actual give our opinion of the congressional hearing of the last one several months ago. Mm-hmm. Maybe I can break that one down and we'll do a whole show on it, and people can see me get really upset watching them act stupid. Because we know a lot more since it's come out, so we're able to be more.
In hindsight, we can help give more clarity to the position that the prosecution and the defense both took, and help people maybe be more at ease with how things played out, because it wasn't a complete nothing burger and a useless endeavor. Congress laid out specific foundational cases and information that is their strongest provable facts. I think that they already have the answers to. They just need the DOD to acknowledge and for them to admit that they have the answers to those questions, and then it's game over. Because once they acknowledge, they've been forced to acknowledge that these are that we're getting underwater phenomena that we can't, that's going 200-300 knots, that is no known human technology whatsoever. We can't even begin to reach those speeds. They've had to acknowledge that exists. If they had, in the first hearing, acknowledged that they've had unidentified UAP in space, it would have been game over right there in that first hearing, because there are no drones or unknown technologies buzzing around in orbit. That right there would have been an immediate acknowledgement of non-human technologies. But that's coming.
Yeah. Excuse me, I got a cough for a second. This is all right. So we'll go down to the next video here.
Wow. So you know what's coming?
Yeah.
So there has been a cover-up?
Yeah. And there has been an active cover-up. I mean, just look at what the Department of Defense announced last week. They announced an office to study the phenomenon. Money put aside. They've said we're going to go back to 1947.
Which is incredible. That's the date of Roswell.
Yeah. 1947, we want a list of every operation that you've done to disinform and misinform.
And I've heard you talk about this because you're more informed than I am, Rob, about them going and asking for these non-disclosures, basically who they were given to. So basically, they know who the players are on both sides.
Yeah, because they have to keep files in those departments of who signed confidentiality agreements, and that has to be
Hmm.
archived. Because if the case comes up that they break that NDA, they've got to be able to prove there is one. And like Lewis said about his emails, there's some things that have to be kept perpetually. So yeah, once they get hold of those documents, in HR or wherever they keep them, then that's
Yeah.
a natural progression to track down the players in each demographic. And it's a back door through HR, but it works. So it'll lead them right to the programs. It won't to the ones that are in the aerospace industries and others that were subcontracted through the military that don't have direct government oversight or a FOIA um, access. But I do think that there's a process that if they're taking government monies and contracts, there has to be some accountability and insight of where the tax dollars are going so they can inspect what they expect. So there should be some roadways into that arena also at some point. 'Cause
Well
all
said.
that,
Go to the next.
I know this is speculative, but why do you think the US government's lied?
I think it's because, frankly, they didn't understand what it was, and nobody wanted to admit that, first of all. But second, they didn't want to admit that they didn't have control over our airspace. We didn't have control over our own airspace.
That's part of it.
yeah, and partly they want to, they want to, frankly, reverse engineer it where they can, control the topic, and if they're reverse engineering it and studying it, they don't want to acknowledge they have it and have to share their toys. Um, and Anonymous Rex asked a question that's kind of relevant. Why do you think NASA wants to appear like they are taking UAP seriously? I think they actually are taking UAP seriously, and the money is going to go from Congress to the people that are actually wanting to put serious um, eyes on the target. And I don't want to use that terminology because they're a civilian. They are not a military organization. They are a civilian-based initiative, but they have the equipment to see far out in space because we have to remember they were tasked several years ago with being able to track all potentially threatening near-Earth objects, which means they had to be able to scan and locate asteroids and all these other bodies, way far out into space that has a lot further reach than any known capabilities of the Air Force or Space Force or anybody else for that matter. They've got the equipment to see farther out than anyone by 20-fold at least and track it persistently. So they've got the equipment to have a far greater range presently, even the Space Force, by, like I said, a factor of 20 at least. So getting them on it to investigate with the assets that they have on hand, if they're willing to do it. And the beauty of it, the Space Force, even though they want to study this, are still under the purview of the Air Force. And if they don't want any information coming out through Air Force, they're going to bottleneck it, and it gets stuck at Susan Go's desk. NASA wouldn't be stuck in that process with so many people trying to dial it down. So they have a lot better chance of autonomy in their research and not being manipulated and controlled. That could actually translate into information eventually to the American people without so many people that are active in trying to stop any kind of disclosure.
We are seeing skeptics finally turning around. I would say generally yes, but there's still some holdouts. What's that physicist? Neil
Degrassi?
Tyson,
Yeah, Neil deGrasse.
yeah,
He used to be a pioneer and an afterburner of wanting to pursue the truth and excited about discovering his environment around him. And he used to like being the talking head that all the news agencies called, when they needed an opinion on physics, science, space, all that jazz. But I don't know what happened to that guy. He turned into the scientific version of Mick West. I really can't speculate on any kind of authoritative knowledge at all about why he's doing what he is, being such a denier, other than maybe it offsets him from the majority of physicists that are out speaking, into the affirmative, like Avi Loeb. So he likes to be the outlier and not run with the pack. But if that's the case, it's going to be to his detriment, because when he finds out that he's on the wrong side of the investigative process, people aren't going to listen to him anymore. It'll take a while to undo his damage.
I wish I had that meme still up. It's a meme of Lou, and it says, "At the end of the day, the truth will come out," which would go along to what he's saying. All right, let's go on to this last clip here.
So the government's been lying, but do you think there's been a cover-up?
Absolutely. I mean, there has been both a cover-up as well as a disinformation campaign to make people look like they were crazy.
Yeah. That's it with the clips. That was only good stuff. Now, they did go over some other stuff, like Professor Michio Kaku. He says, saying the stuff that he normally says. He's an interesting guy. I would love to have been in his classes. All right, so they go on. They talk about this story, which I thought it was amazing, and if it's true, it's mind blowing. Let me delete this video here. Okay, I got to get my pictures popped up here, and there they are. It's not this one. It's this guy. All right, folks, this guy, his name is Jim Marlin. Now, Jim Marlin has been very successful. He was Willie Nelson. He's a friend of Willie Nelson. He was best friends with Dennis Hopper, and apparently he was a promoter for Willie Nelson, and very successful doing that. Now, Dennis Hopper's bodyguard, he whatever his name is or was, lived in New Mexico, and he asked Jim here if he would come out and take a look at his house. So he comes out there, and he finds like these pile of these spheres, like the one that you see here in this picture. It was about 6 or 7 of them in a pile, and Jim here asked, "Why do you have a pile of these spheres, these balls?" And the guy says, "If I told you, you wouldn't believe me." He says, "I swear that a UFO just came over my house and these came out of it." And that was the story. So the guy asked, "Hey, you want one? Take one." So for 40 years, he's been carrying around this sphere. Now he says he has seen things. He has seen it do some things, which would be supernatural. All right, so I write some notes here. Once it did shock him, and he landed 6 to 10 feet away from it. He was laying on the ground when it happened. They did weigh it. It weighs exactly 50 pounds. They measured the circumference. It's 81 centimeters. And
35 inches.
Yep. Dr. Garry Nolan has now in his possession, because he asked Jim here if he can get some shavings, some rusted areas on there, and he agreed. So Dr. Garry Nolan's going to do a analysis, and it's going to take a month to get that done. So that's it on here. And here's another picture.
Yeah, I've watched some shows on it. It would follow them around the floor. It would roll across tables after them, and it seems like it's perfectly balanced. There aren't any lopsided aspects of it. It's however it was created.
I really think it needs to be. Dr. Garry Nolan needs to take it and see. The problem that I have is I don't trust giving things disappear. Yeah, like Doc Valet said, He says this stuff just disappears. If you
Oh yeah.
take your eye off of it, it'll disappear. So I'd like to get all the science done to it. And could you imagine somehow being able to look inside this thing and find out
Well,
what
I
it
think the
is?
equipment that they have, they're able to do it non-invasively, and I think the guy was able. I think Garry Nolan and his team are able to convince him that it wouldn't disappear and that they could keep it secured.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt they will
Yeah.
in this case, because they document it on TV. You know, he's a well-known person. It's not like you know, we hear in so many instances, hey, we're from the museum, we want to study it, just sign here, and we'll be sure to get it returned when we're done. And then, you know, they give them a card and a paper, and they find out they don't exist. They never know them, never heard of them at the
Yeah.
institution, and never
It's
to be
one of
seen
those
again.
stories that makes me sick every time I hear it. And it's happened way too many times. You know, so all right. So there's some hold on, let me get this right here. Here we go. Okay, so the breaking news is I just found out Lou just tweeted. And so I brought up his tweet here. I think this is the one. I think. Is this the right one? No, that's not the one I want to do first. I need to bring up. My goodness. Is it? No, it's not that one either. This one. Here it is. Boom. I need to put this one up here then. Boom. Give me 1 second. I'll get everything in the right order. Okay, now I'm in the right order. Lou says, once again, excellent work by the great Dean Johnson. Before I go any further, who is Dean Johnson? Would you happen to know that?
Yeah, he's a very well-known reporter, journalist, and ally on the disclosure process.
Good. This is a direct result of our tireless efforts behind the scenes, most notably Chris Mellon. We all know Chris, the congressional staffers, and our courageous elected officials. What a great time to be alive. Yeah, Chris Mellon also, he's on my fantasy charity all-star list as well. I'll put him on there. All right. So Dean Johnson says, just released, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence has released its explanatory report number 117, TAC 132 on let's go on, the Intelligence Authorization Act, as I reported July 14th. See my pin tweet. S4503 contains 31 pages of proposed new UAP-related provisions. So what I did, folks, is that those right down there, I increased the size of them. So I don't know if I can read that. Let me see if I can read it over here. Okay, so what this is, Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2023. The Select Committees of Intelligence have considered the original bill to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2023 for intelligence. So long story short, they are basically giving money to continue probably this UAP task force, right? And for for those whistleblowers to be protected and all that other good stuff. Rob, is that what's going on here?
Is what?
Is this bill? Hold on, I'm going to the next page. It's actually it has a big red.
The crux of it is that it's forcing the language in it is forcing them to acknowledge that this is non-human technologies, because it states that these new task forces are going to be exclusively investigating anomalous UAP, and then anything that is human-made automatically gets kicked out of their investigation and over to the traditional components of the DoD that handle those technologies. Say, for instance, if they figure out it's a Russian drone or whatever, then it kicks into the department that handles that aspect of it, and they stay laser focused on any reports that are non-human. And once it's identified that it's a human tech, it gets kicked out of their investigative process to another group, so they don't waste their time 1 second on any terrestrial threat or potential threat or technologies of near peers or adversaries, either one. Once it is recognized as a human origin, it's out. So by default, they're acknowledging that there exists non-human technologies. Otherwise, this department would just be a sorting desk and basically saying, okay, this is this technology that goes with this country, so shoot it off to that person. It would just be a sorting process, and that's not what this is about at all.
Right. Also, Lou had a link, and the link went to this. I went to the Hill. The Congress implies UFO have non-human origins. It says in Congress, where legislation is drafted, debated, and interacted, clear and concise definitions are of paramount importance. As military air crew increasingly encounter unidentified flying objects, lawmakers recently made several striking revisions to the definition of UFO. Key among them, the explosive implication that some UFO have non-human origins. That's pretty big, right? We'll get going here.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not just sitting behind a desk. They can actually go out and investigate it.
Yeah. As first reported by researchers Douglas Johnson, a draft bill approved anonymously by the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence rebrands UFOs as unidentified aerospace undersea phenomenon. Okay, so this is our new. So is this good as gold? Are we calling this that now? Do we need to change the title of our channel? I think we'll keep that, but that's going to be the new identification for UFOs, people. It's unidentified aerospace undersea phenomenon. So it's UAUP. You know those UAUPs? Well, that just goes right off the tip of the tongue there. Better than what the what that acronym for the task force was previously, or still is. Expanding the definition to include objects in space and under the ocean significantly broadens the scope of a muscular new office tasked by Congress with investigating UFOs. See, they didn't call it the other one. They went back to UFOs. So the revised definition, go on to the next one. I can get rid of that one. Delete. And I delete this one too. I'll go back to that one. Bam. Okay, the revised definition of UFO also includes transmedium objects, which, according to lawmakers, transition between space and the atmosphere, or between the atmosphere and bodies of water. And why not all three? That's what I'm saying. In short, members of key national security forces focused a committee believed that the objects of unknown origin are demonstrating remarkably advanced technology by moving seamlessly between space, air, and water. A report accompanying the legislation notes that transmedium threats to the United States national security are expanding exponentially. It's strange crudelty to believe that the lawmakers would include such extraordinary language in public legislation without compelling evidence. Perhaps members have seen the classified sensor data that prompted former President Trump's Director of National Intelligence to state that UFOs exhibit technologies that we don't have and that we are not capable of defending against. Whew. Among several other eyebrow raising comments. Most likely, Congress' new definition, UFO excludes. I have no idea because okay, never mind. I have something on my tablet here, but not here. I can read it there. Okay. Most strikingly, Congress' new definition of UFO excludes man-made objects. Over the last 7 decades, most UFO sightings involved man-made objects, such as misidentified craft, balloons, satellites, or drones. Yet, now, according to Congress, man-made objects should not be considered under the definition as unidentified aerospace undersea phenomenon. We're going to be hearing a lot more of that in the future, folks. Moreover, in a congressional directive, objects identified by the new UFO office as man-made will be passed to appropriate Department of Defense and intelligence community offices for further analysis. Stop me if you need a comment there, buddy.
Yeah.
Congress, in short, is forcing the government to focus on objectives that are not man-made. That's amazing. Bam, right there. Okay. Imagine that the new UFO office identifies highly advanced drone flying and sensitive aerospace. Okay. Under the draft legislation, regardless of the drone's origin, be it Chinese, Russian, or otherwise, the UFO office must immediately stop investigating and hand the case over to another government entity.
Boom.
This implies...
Yeah. Exactly what I was saying a minute ago. You see, that's important. That's extremely important. That means don't waste our freaking time in this department, in this task force, on somebody else's job. And they know the difference between the two.
This implies that members of the Senate Intelligence Committee believe, on an anonymous bipartisan basis, that some of the UFOs have non-human origins. What? Did you just hear that? After all, why would Congress establish a powerful new office with investigating man-made UFOs if such objects, if such objects did not exist?
Mm-hmm.
Dang!
Yeah. Boom.
Bam! Make no mistake. One branch of the American government implying that UFOs have non-human origins is an explosive development. It is also part of the remarkable shift in official attitude toward UFOs. In the late 1940s and 50s, many senior government officials believed that the UFOs had interplanetary origins. But a series of still unexplained encounters in the summer of 52 sparked Cold War national security fears, of course, expected, among defense and intelligence agencies. As a result, the United States government initiated a campaign to debunk and discredit all UFO sightings. Not only that, and discredit the people, no matter how credible. For decades, officials mocked any suggestion that UFOs had extraterrestrial origins. Go down to the next one here, folks. Bam. Not anymore. In discussion and interviews, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson suggested that UFOs encountered by military aircrew in recent years have otherworldly origins. NASA, it should be noted, is proceeding full force on the unprecedented scientific study of UFOs. I think they just want money. Everybody wants money. Every department wants money. Yeah, give us some money. We'll go study that stuff. They know what's going on anyways. They've been kind of covering stuff up. My opinion. Former CIA Director John Brennan stated that UFOs might constitute a different form of life. According to the James Woosley, a fellow ex-CIA director, something is going on that is surprising to experienced pilots. As Top Gun trained aviators remain convinced that they observe objects not of this world. Directed of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, America's top spy, has not ruled out extraterrestrial origins for UFOs. Moreover, former President Clinton reflexively to the high likelihood of otherworldly life in the universe when asked about UFOs. For his part, former President Obama speculated openly about contact with extraterrestrial life when asked about recent military UFO encounters. After the customary giggles and smirks that goes along with media when they talk about it, they have a little segment. Oh, shit it. That still accompany any mention of UFOs died down. Both Clinton and Obama adopted a serious, matter-of-fact demeanor when discussing this topic. Or the topic. Clinton is particularly scolded a television audience for laughing when a host asked him about UFOs. Of note, former president continued receiving the government's most sensitive intelligence and briefings. Unsurprisingly, this remarkable shift in attitude towards UFOs is fostering a broader, richer discussion of the phenomenon. Comedian and political commentary Bill Maher, for example, recently theorized that the UFOs are intentionally revealing themselves to fighter pilots. He may be onto something. The geometrically... Hold on, buddy. No, leave that kitty alone. Anyway, the geometrically reconstructed flight path of a well-known 2015 UFO encounter off the U.S. East Coast indicates that the object reacted as a Navy fighter jet attempted to sneak up behind it. Importantly, the object's movement did not suggest hostility as much as a desire to be observed by the aircrew, which ultimately flew right up to the thing. A UFO involved in the now famous 2004 Tic Tac incident appears on radar at the precise location and rendezvous point known only to the small group of aviators and radar operators. 10 years later, two fighter jets nearly collided with a UFO hovering at the exact location and altitude. I believe it's called the Cat Point. Of an entrance point to the military training range. And lastly, to Mars' point, some UFOs appear to move and position themselves in ways that make their presence obvious to nearby military aircrews, with Congress openly suggesting that UFOs have non-human origins. This behavior is particularly intriguing. Merrick Von served as an analyst with the U.S. Department of the State's Bureau of International Security of Non-Proliferation, as well as the Obama administration appointee at the United States or the U.S. Department of Defense. You can follow him right there, folks. So there's a lot of information in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bam. All right. Well, that's it, folks. Anything else going on today?
Just a lot more speculation. Kicked up a conversation in the chat of Julie and them of if we are genetically modified by another species. And Julie is discussing that, that there are a lot of animals with higher intelligence. I agree with that. Possibly closer to the creator than people. I know all things have sentience, and I do agree with that. You know, maybe not exactly from her perspective, but we all have our vantage points and perceptions of how we view things. I
Hmm.
don't, if there were going to be, let's say, the Anunnaki, and that's an outlier tale. Most religions and things talk about a creation story, and that even like the Native Americans on it, they talk about their sky brothers, and that they weren't created by their sky brothers; they just helped them out. Same thing
Mm.
with Zoroaster. He didn't create them; he just came down and helped them survive the floods and things. There's very few that actually state they acknowledge even in the Vedics they talk about that they weren't the god that created humans. They are a lesser god, and then there's that one nameless god of all that created them even that they pay homage to. But I think if we were genetically, there, I look back at the analogy of the Garden of Eden, and I don't take it literal. I take it as a I'm not discounting the scriptures, so don't take that wrong either. Um, it's like a parable, not
Yeah,
verbatim.
parable.
That
Yeah.
something happened that caused whatever we were supposed to be, because it stated the knowledge. It didn't state that we gained higher intellectual knowledge. It said that we gained the knowledge of good and evil. So were
Yeah.
we also of the innocence of other uh, animals on the planet? Because you got lions that hunt down animals and kill because they have to because they're carnivores. Then they don't understand that they are causing pain, and when they hear their prey screaming, they have no remorse for
Hmm.
that. Doesn't even doesn't even cross their mind that they
Hmm.
are harming something or that they should even care. Um, we're early hominids and things, I'm sure, were more to that mindset. But we're acutely aware. What is good and evil. I would dare say that anything that you know takes the rights away from something else for our own benefit, and it's by choice, not by necessity for survival. Because everybody and everything fights for position. Hey, Bill, glad you could show up, bro. Um, energy, mass, everything fights for position, that yin yang balance. But
Right.
what changed to give us knowledge of a good and evil, and how would that be defined? And I'm asking a question, kind of. So, if anybody has ideas in the chat, pop them up. I certainly don't have all the answers. I'm seeking like the rest of us, the rest of you. Um, what did we gain that we weren't supposed to? And that appointed us once to die in the flesh. You know, the way I understand it, of being created in God's image, it wasn't in the flesh; it was in the spirit, and a non-physical manifestation. So, did we inadvertently get tricked into taking the flesh, maybe, or something comparable to that, to where we now have to once die in this body to then become what we were supposed to be in the first place? If you want to look at that from that path, then maybe we weren't meant to be in the flesh, but we were tricked somehow into it because there was a higher being that was jealous of humans and tricked them into partaking of that. Um, I don't know. It's something I contemplate a lot, trying to figure out, what happened and what the lessons are there. Um, because any true, I've studied other religions because you look at the ones like that went very bad, like the Aztecs that believed in sacrificing people, their beating hearts to their god and things. I dare
Hmm.
say that's not a positive, love thy neighbor type of religion, and I reject those. I wouldn't, I'm not saying Christianity or Judeo Christianity is the only path or true religion. I don't I can only speak for what I believe and what my perception is. for other people, it's different because it's an individual thing. Different people have different perspectives, and so do different civilizations. The people in India, China, Middle East, they have different worldviews and traditions to where they wouldn't accept Judeo-Christianity. They have no point of reference to it from the early times. It would need to be presented to them in a way that they can understand and they could accept. So, what's right for me isn't necessarily right for somebody else. I can't make the determination. I just know what works for me. And, it's a matter of faith, not fact. That's why they don't put it into scientific studies, and they take it into consideration as a possibility because it can't be ruled out. And there's a lot of historical fact in many different religious manuscripts, not just Judeo-Christian, that they found that a lot of these places did truly exist, and a lot of the people in them also existed. And Sumerian and the Vedics, a lot of them were found that those cities did exist, like Dwarka, and the people that were portrayed in there. They find their tombs and that they were true kings, and there's a lot more truth to it than people realized even 20, 30 years ago. That the more they, what's ironic is you get all these people going out digging, trying to prove, things wrong and that it didn't truly happen, and they end up finding some of the most remarkable evidence to prove that it did exist, which I think is pretty ironic. But there's a lot of historical data in there, so why wouldn't there be historical roadmaps to help us understand the nature of humanity? And we have all these megalithic structures, and I keep going back to them because it's important. There are the glyphs that are on them, the hallmarks, and all these different sites that were attuned with archaeoacoustics. That was central to these ancient civilizations. And I dare say they weren't putting on rock concerts at all these places.
Right.
They were tuning into something central to their entire being, and and it was a spiritual component. So with all these high resonant frequencies that are between 70, 130 megahertz, that are, when they hit these in these megalithic structures, they're tuned to that. So they have a standing wave resonance, and some of them are dual standing waves that elicit a very active portion of the right brain and suppresses the left brain, where they have like a DMT trip without the drug, where they are in tune with a higher order of consciousness and their environment and their creator, whatever. They were in touch with something that is beyond humanity, that they were actively in communion with in ancient times, that we lost that connection with after the last flood of 5,000 years ago. But it seemed like, before that, there were literal little g gods set up in all these temples, especially in India, was the last, I think, iteration of it, where they were actually in the temples and humans were slaves to them and in their little fiefdoms, and having to work the fields and things and deliver to them and things every day. Their tithes, they had to bring their wine and their food to them every day, or they got punished. But I think that that there was a fight for the future of humanity. That if you look at the fallen, you don't have to subscribe to the religion, but if you look at the accounting of the historical narrative, that there were one faction that decided to give humanity technologies and information they weren't supposed to have, because it unnaturally catapulted them forward to the point where they were, devising their own destruction, and they're also enslaving them. They did, the other factions that were the ruling class, or the ruling that had oversight over these ones that went rogue, didn't like it, so they warred. And there's signs all over the planet, and in a lot of these megaliths, and we can go over that sometime, where high energy weapons were used to melt great swaths into these locations. And scientists have looked at them and indicated where these buildings, and some of these are like walls and things. They're only like a couple of meters wide, some of them in diagonal, where they were melted with high energy, where huge megalithic blocks are melted like marshmallows. And
Oh, we lost Rob. See if we can get him going here. He'll come back. In the meantime, folks, I wanted to show you we have a new logo for military witnesses to UAP, and just a little change. Got a little saying at the end. And bring it up. Found it. Here it is, folks. Military witnesses to UAP, continuing the conversation. And while we're still waiting for Rob, what I do on my free time here at the house, I do photo restorations, and I came across a photo, which it's got to be 20 years old now. No, it's got to be 22 years old. Before 9/11, 2001, I was on board the USS John F. Kennedy, and the previous year there was Fleet Week. And while I was there, I took a picture of the city as we were driving up to it. So here's the photo I took from the flight deck. So yay, that came out pretty good. And hopefully Rob will come back any moment. Oh, here's another picture I want to show you. The dude that had the sphere, there was another family who had one. It looked exactly like that sphere. And I did a screen capture. This is them with their sphere. And that looks just like the other sphere. They were too much, in my opinion, in the media, and it disappeared on them. They made themselves high risk, and I believe someone just came along and took their stuff. And some news. I'm a big fan of James Webb Telescope, and some new photos come in. I'll go ahead and show you what those look like. You got that one, and another one that shows Jupiter having a ring around it. So bam, there's the ring. So that came out real good. And lastly, I got a photo right here. This is an example of, I call it light art. By doing a long exposure and taking like your cell phone light, and you just do this number and you walk around, you're able to do stuff like this. This was done at Jacksonville Beach. So that is light art with a cell phone. So that came out pretty cute. I think I think the Air Force came and finally took Rob off the air and threw him in the back of the trunk and hauled butt. But let me take a look at the chat, because we're going to probably finish it up here, folks. If anybody has a question or anything, please let me know. Oh, I got a big one for you. If you haven't done it yet, bam, UFOexpo.com. Get a chance, go to that website, get your ticket, get a room while you're at it, unless you want to live in your, sleep in your car overnight. But everyone's going to be there, and of course, I'm going to be there. I should be on the VIP list, but maybe next time. So, so get your ticket. Palm Coast, just south of Jacksonville, October 1st and 2nd. Let's see. Rob? No, Rob's not coming back, folks. Let me check the chat one more time. Yeah. James Webb Telescope. I was following that thing for like, I don't know, maybe a half a dozen years before that thing lifted off. And they're already working on the future telescope, which is going to be many times even better than James Webb. It's exciting times. It really, really is. For those who don't know, we got like 16 people in the chat room. For those who are new to this channel, as soon as we hit 1,000 subscribers, we'll be able to monetize the channel. So what does that mean? Rob and I are donating 100% of all the money that's generated through the super chats and through the monetization, and it all goes to a charity that Lou Elizondo, Rob Heatherly, and I have created. And I was very fortunate that Lou and Rob named the charity after me. Now, how cool is that? So it's called Shannon Scott's Vets and Vets for Wounded Vets and Pets fundraiser. It's an annual fundraiser, but in certain ways it'll be all year round as well. And from my understanding, Lou told me that he has a all-star lineup. So I was just going to have fun and just try to guess on who Lou has chosen to be on this all-star lineup to help push for this charity. So that's why I'm having my fantasy picks of who's going to be in the all-star. One, Dr. Garry Nolan, and of course, Chris Mellon. Might as well throw director James Fox in there too. But other than that, folks, I think we are. Let me look at the comments one more time. All right, I'll read the rest of them. I can't read without my glasses, folks. But we are going to end it, and I'll check on Rob and make sure he's doing okay. We're going to make sure he's not in the back of a trunk. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
I'll take care, all right? Nothing but love for you. Nothing but love for you. You think they have any clue what's about to happen to them?
Oh, not a chance in hell. Good night.